Hello, everybody. This is the Seahawks podcast where we will break down how the Seattle Seahawks won their crucial game, but have missed the playoffs. And so 2023 football is over. Before that, we'll let everyone join because we're starting slightly late. Appreciate you all sticking around and tuning in live to us, spending your Sunday evening with us. At least you have, if you're a Huskies fan, at least you have the Huskies, don't you? If you're a Cougs fan, I don't know how that shakes out. I know I've seen some Cougs are not a fan of the Huskies, and then some are. Maybe I've just offended people. Griff, do you have anything you want to say before we actually just do the thing?
I did it again, Matty. When I was putting on a pair of sweats, for some reason I pulled them all the way up to the waist before getting the elastic
Yep.
thing at the ankle over the foot before pulling them up. I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on with me.
That's okay.
But other than that, everything's normal mode.
It's not your fault.
Okay, if you say so. How about you? Well, how's your putting on pants, trousers life?
I have PJ bottoms on.
Nice.
That's what you guys call them, right?
I mean, we got
pajamas.
We call them PJs, pajamas. Do you guys use that term over there?
We call them pajamas.
Yeah, we say pajamas.
I think that might be an Americanism, though.
That we've exported to you guys?
Like someone like Gap invented them.
Yeah, pajama. Gap. That's such an interesting word. Like, what's the origination of the word pajama?
The etymology.
Yeah, like I've never thought to question that until now.
Fascinating. Oh, dear. Oh.
Pajama origin.
Jen, that's got me very interested. Oh, yeah. Who's Monjombo puts jammies? Yeah, Jim Jams. Do you call him Jim Jams?
I do not call him Jim Jams. I've actually never heard that before. I've known about jammies though, like some people saying jammies.
We sometimes go with the Jim Jam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Pajamas are soft garments derived from the Indian and Iranian bottom wear, the pajamas, which are adopted in the Western world. Okay, so it does have roots to something. It's not just like a made-up word.
Huh.
So the word so pajama is probably an Anglicization of the word pajama or pajama.
Huh.
Very interesting. The word pajama is borrowing via Urdu from Persian. Okay.
I did think that could be a
Yeah.
A thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Should we do this?
Yeah.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh, I could do this as well, Griff. Look at that. Bang. Right, let's go. Welcome to the Seattle Overload podcast, where the Seattle Seahawks have finished 2023 football. We're now in 2024, but they've won their Week 18 clash at the Arizona Cardinals 21-20. They've avoided the bad kind of honor of having a joint worst NFC West record. They've finished this season on 9-8, but unfortunately for the Seahawks, because of how their first 16 games of the season had gone, their playoff fate was resting in other hands, and they needed the Chicago Bears to beat the Green Bay Packers. The Chicago Bears did not beat the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers won their home game. They took care of business, 17-9 victors. And so the Seahawks are out of the playoffs. And Griff, this game, in truth, as well as the Seahawks being out of the playoffs, this game, I was all ready to tweet. That was a 23-21 blowout from the Cardinals. But the Arizona misses 2 field goals, and somehow, some way, and they weren't even long field goals, and it's Matt Prater who kind of gives off a vibe of peanut butter vodka. Like he would just do shots of that That's the vibe I get from him. Anyway,
Peanut butter vodka.
Field goals at the end of the game, and somehow the Seahawks win this game. But Griff, this was not an impressive performance.
No, sloppy, ugly, gross win. But a win. Then the season 9-8, a game that served really as a microcosm of the whole season. Gross, disgusting, didn't perform up to your ceiling, bad defense.
Poopy.
A offense that was greatly sandbagged by its offensive line and general like execution errors, the type of errors that are well within the means of a player to not commit, and still, in spite of it all, like the offense puts together a game-winning drive and wins at the last second. So more or less. So yeah, I mean, really the perfect game to send this season off into the incinerator. But they end the season 9-8, and I think in the aggregate, the final calculus, this was the worst possible scenario of the scenarios that are realistic, like barring like your most important player, the quarterback, getting hurt, like when your season's kaput at that point, right? Like the general sentiment, right? If Quandre Diggs and Devin Witherspoon and Jaron Reed get hurt, in addition to okay, it was whatever, but within any like rational projection, I think that it went about as bad as it could have. And we're talking it going about as bad as it could have. We're talking 9-8. So we need to, as upset and disappointed as I am, and I think we all are, that still kind of needs to, I think, help us gauge what needs to happen next. There is a lot to criticize. There is a lot to criticize and a lot that needs to get better.
Yeah, so chat, we're going to talk about kind of our very quick kind of preview of how they should proceed moving forward from this game. I mean, as Griff points out, I think if you flipped this year with last year, and they went 9-8 last year and missed the playoffs, and then went 10-7 this year and made the playoffs, I think the perception would be very different. It's just the fact that they reshaped so many pieces. They acquired new talent. They changed their defense and the way that they're playing to be better against the run, in theory, and it did work to start the season. But then, they had a tackling guy in the off season. They met with the Seattle rugby coach. There's all these issues in 2022. I haven't even delved into the offense that they were supposed to improve. Jackson Smith and Jigba were supposed to be a big part of fixing third downs. Not that he played badly this season, but offensive line, you thought, okay, the interior, Phil Haynes is back. They've got some continuity there. Evan Brown started the season well, looked like a bit of an upgrade on Austin Blythe at center. Second year of the tackles, they should learn. There's all these things which were meant to be better, and yet the kind of problems after 2023, we're going to be like a broken record when we weren't talking about 2022. We might have a slight different take on how the defense should move forward now, but because it's kind of similar issues back-to-back years, I think that leads to kind of more extreme reactions. Suddenly you talk about firing people, suddenly you talk about doing more drastic things. So we will talk about that. But before that, to kind of really dive into this game, I think the big news heading into this was Jaron Reed was inactive with a knee injury, kept him out of practices all this week. They're not starting nose tackle. Mario Edwards, you may have spotted him. He was ruled out early for the second week running. So what that meant was rookie fourth round pick Cam Young came in as a nose. And then also Matt Gotel, who'd played okay in the preseason. He played in as a nose. So Seattle was already light on the interior. They obviously have been missing Uchenna Nwosu. And they get absolutely gashed in the run game in a way that, it wasn't a surprise, but the Cardinals ran 38 times to 206 rushing yards at 5.4 yards per carry. Their success rate actually on early rushing downs wasn't great, or even rushing the football wasn't great, but they kind of seemed to be able to do it at will when it mattered. And crucially, in terms of their explosive plays, they had a bunch, didn't they? They probably had, if I count up the explosive plays here, usually when I'm looking at let me share my screen. So usually when I'm looking at explosive plays, I use the NFL GSIS game book. And usually what you do is you look for, like, say, Seattle's one, you'll look for, is this 14-yard play a pass or a run? Because if it's a pass, then it's not technically explosive play because they count passes as 16 yards or greater, whereas runs is 12 yards or greater. So if that was a run, like these 14-yard plays, those are both explosive plays. So sometimes below 16, you have to check whether that is an explosive or not. And then sometimes you'd say if Seattle had a 12-yard run here rather than this pass, you'd have to search for it in the document. But the Cardinals here, they don't even have a number lower than 18 on the explosive plays list, which means they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plays of 18 yards or greater flat out. So the explosive play count must be probably, with how well they ran the ball, it'll be in the 15 plus region, which is an absolute disgrace. There's no other way of phrasing it. That's just not acceptable. It's not acceptable. They should have lost this game because of how bad the defense played. I said it in the week, but Clint Hurt's press conference, he looked like a kind of a doomed man. It was almost sad to watch it. I mean, as I said, it comes with the territory, it comes with his job title, it comes with that responsibility. That's kind of what he signed up for too. Ultimately, he is accountable for this. And it's just, they couldn't stop the run. Some of their plans for the Cardinals' multiple tight end looks, the 13 personnel, you have Pete Carroll looking absolutely resigned on the sideline in a way that I haven't seen before. I just couldn't believe I couldn't believe how much they struggled. And part of it was Jordan Brooks was absolutely banged up. Part of it was Darrell Taylor looked like a guy who still hasn't quite got the run instincts to play the run well, and it's definitely not Uchenna Nwosu. Part of it was Bobby Wagner looking lost at times and really lacking the speed to get over the top of stuff and get sideline to sideline for like the gap kind of pull concepts.
Yeah.
Griff, do you have anything to add on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's the players out in the field were not good at all. Again, it didn't seem it was once again like a problem of the interior 2 or 3 really losing blocks. It was, you had in base personnel, you kind of had C gap and D gap issues, which are the inherent problems of the front of their base front. Kind of their, really it's a reduced over front, right? Reduced under front. And then also they didn't have great edge play. Mafe is good, but he's not like elite. And then Taylor, he played high effort today, but he's just too light in there, man. And Derek Hall still, Derek Hall isn't too light. Derek Hall plays with a lot of great play strength, but he just isn't up to NFL speed yet. So like he'll get knocked back, but not relate to the rest of the blocking scheme well, or his own defense, his fellow defensive lineman well. It's just it's a crisis of edge play, and then the a lack of like supplementary calls. Like what they needed when they put like the tight end wing sets and stuff. Like they're not slanting into that enough, and then when they are, it's like they clearly, like, the second level's eyes aren't in the right place for who's pulling, who isn't. So at that point, you think, yeah, the execution isn't great, but then also when their eyes aren't in the right place, you start to wonder about coaching. But I think beyond that is that we kind of have to frame the whole run defense thing as philosophically, they don't scheme like the run matters. They scheme like the pass matters. And that was the case last year, and they didn't want that to happen again, but they want to they wanted to maintain the advantages of the front last year, which on paper is to be able to rush the passer, as we've talked about. They want to be able to maintain that and continue to and be able to defend the run out of that, so you can continue to rush the passer and have 3-dimensional pass defense. And so it works when you're at max strength and you have all your talent out there. And, because it did for, however many games it did. I mean, they weren't just like good, they were like elite. They were better than everybody. And then once the talent starts to regress, and that puts more stress on the lesser talented players, then it puts more stress on the scheme, and the scheme puts even more stress on those players, so on and so forth. It points back to, really, it goes back to two things. The scheme is not run first oriented or even balanced toward the run. And then secondly, it goes back to some of our misgivings about the rostering, like those in the offseason, like the minor moves they made at D-line, the minor moves they made added up, and it was forced to matter in the end. And when it was working really well, I think in hindsight, it was so much more delicate than we thought, maybe. And
Well, I don't even know if it was, man. Like we said, like, okay, this is great, but how are they going to lay off this and continue?
I just didn't think it would plummet that far.
Yeah, and I know this
is twofold. It's talent. It's threefold: injuries, but talent before injuries, talent after injuries, and then the scheme is not run first. For 4 years, even when they had bad pass defense, they were able to be consistently good against the run, churning through their entire depth chart. For 4 or 5 years, that was the case. So they're not able to now. And I think it stems, finally we can kind of say something where the overarching philosophy is impacting. It doesn't mean you can't still get good run defense within that philosophy. Again, they showed they could for about 6 weeks, a month and a half. But then it like a house of cards, it all crumbled. So more needs to be done to prevent that from happening.
In his post-game press conference, Bobby Wagner kind of described how they were really started the season emphasizing stopping the run, and then that kind of waned in an emphasis perspective as they started worrying about the pass and the kind of pass stuff they were giving up. There seems that they weren't and unable to get the right balance. But just, to this game, yeah, there was, players like for their eyes to be in the wrong place on certain stuff, like 13 personnel. And like on the James Conner run, where afterwards Pete Carroll's looking like absolutely like resigned. I don't know, like it looks like they're blitzing off the weak edge, they're blitzing Julian Love. But again, it seems like it's not just a, scheme thing or whatever. It's like, what are they coaching in the week, emphasis wise? Like they've clearly catered that call in for 13 personnel. How are they not able to fit power from that or whatever counter?
Right.
Like it should be your stop. Like, hey, we're going to call this pressure, and we love it because what it does is it brings weak side pressure off the Kyler Murray bootleg out the back door. But how is Bobby Wagner then not really thinking, okay, I've got backdoor help, I've got guard pull, I need to get across. Looked like everyone fell back with that to go over the top of the movement almost, and they just didn't see the guard pull. And then Reek Woolen's fitting the C gap, and he doesn't want to tackle James Conner. He's like lame, like we've seen all season, really.
Yeah.
Like where he like sticks his hand out and touches him in the chest when, okay, I'm not putting my body on the line. I understand, but it's football. Like go low through his legs. It's pretty damn simple.
It's as simple as Bobby needs to be protected by the front when gaps change, gaps move. Ken Norton Jr. put a lot of investment into that in 2021 out of the same, well, not really the same front philosophy, but similar enough to where it wasn't a problem for the run. That is no longer here. Like it's just not game planned. It's probably not coached well enough. On paper, some of it's the same play calls, but it's like timing's different, coaching's different, application's different.
The Cardinals I don't think they changed much. I don't think they had specific calls for Seattle. I think that was what they expected. Seattle seemed to, have some calls where they're like, okay, we'll try and attack what the Cardinals are doing. They had the base stuff, they had the nickel stuff, but ultimately the way they got out executed, to me, it just speaks to a real problem, not just at the DC level, but like positional coaching. I don't know what's going on there.
Well, yeah, and like the Seahawks haven't had bad linebacker play fitting the run wise really until the past 2 years, and so we wonder like, well, is John Glenn do you start to point the finger at him? Is he part of it, or
you mentioning that because although John Glenn's been there since 2012, Ken Norton Jr. was the chief linebacker coach
right.
for quite a few of those years.
Right. Right. So I don't. It's just anytime it was Bobby and Bush out there together, the results it was absolute horrific. It was horrific.
Well, and
it was
Brooks looked hobbled, and we should say after the game,
and injured Brooks as well.
Apparently, Pete Carroll said he re-injured his ankle in this game, and I think they pulled him because he just wasn't moving right. But I mean, he had that really impressive pass breakup, which was ironically the play he hurt his ankle on. But
they put him back in. He couldn't do anything.
Flat. He didn't look right, and so there's this whole storm of there's injured players. Again, Nwosu, massive loss, as we spoke about when that happened. But there's also bad players. There's players who can't move. Like Wagner, the lack of speed. I know there was a play which came back because of something or other, but the play where he belly flopped out of bounds because he couldn't cut the angle off on I think it was Rondale Moore, who's no slouch, don't get me wrong, but Bobby, as you described it before we came on air, Griff, he needs everything kind of perfectly boxed in to be able to kind of make the tackle, and even then it's very conservative angle because he just doesn't have the speed to do it. And he's right in the middle of the defense a lot of the time, particularly when they're in the nickel stuff, because they're playing him like an over Mike, so he's generally going to be in the middle, a 4-3 over Mike. So there's a lot of stuff there. It's personnel, it's scheme, it's coaching, it's game planning. It just, the whole defense looks like a disaster. And honestly, without being behind the scenes, it's very hard to evaluate it, other than that they improved certain weaknesses in the season, like their over the middle pass defense. And also, what else did they improve? Well, I guess they made a bit of a turn in terms of third down defense. And to start the year, at least, their run defense was good, which shows that their emphasis is there. But they struggled with balance. They struggled with game planning. And down the stretch, teams who had an identity on offense and were able to run the ball already, this caused them severe issues. And ultimately, when you look at this team, the offense did okay. They were average to good on the season, and it's hard not to get into kind of a look back on things, but the defense was a disaster. Griff, do you have anything specifically on the defense from this game other than what we've kind of talked about, or should we transition to the offense?
Well, the coverage bust, like wide open guys again, was really frustrating. It's tough that it's just pure not reading the like not going from the formation to the initial stems to the quarterback drop to reading the routes and putting all that picture together in your head and playing it right. It's just and the players on the field are good enough to not have as many mistakes as they're making. And so again, it goes back to is it game planning? And now it's strange because last year, even through some injury and to the secondary, kind of normal injury, the final 3 months of the season, they were rock solid against this stuff. I mean, they were the seventh best pass defense. And, so, I mean, yeah, they did lose Sean Desai, but we saw what happened in Philadelphia this year. I think Carl Scott, as the passing game coordinator and DB coach, I think he knows football. I think he knows how to coach it too. So it's not something as, flatly two-dimensional as just saying, well, you need to upgrade on Scott. I mean, something has gone wrong here. I mean, Clint Hurts, the DC, is something with, maybe it's something more subjective and cultural, like the way, the mood in the locker room where they're putting their chips, mentally, what the literal words they're choosing to say, during team meetings. Who knows? Clearly something didn't work.
Telling players they're being soft at halftime when they can't stop the run, rather than actually addressing the issue, which Pete Carroll says afterwards is taking too many shots.
Right.
Which happened after the Titans game, by the way.
Yeah. Instead of just, playing the block, reading the blocks, understanding the blocking scheme, and then just fitting it up, the second level kind of went rogue in the Steelers game, as we talked about. Is really what happened, just doing their own thing. Like they're not staying leveraged to their gap. You end up having 3 guys in one gap because they're all trying to do their own thing.
I can't believe that corner run. I can't believe why they all fell back like that. No one saw the guard pull. Like it's just like amateur. It's just amateur though.
It's garbage fundamentals.
How does that happen with so much practice time that they have? And they knew they were going to get that concept. They had that, like, in theory, like on paper, if everyone plays it right, you've got the perfect call in. Like, it's ridiculous.
So going back to like team mentality, were they trying too hard? Were they pressing? Were they playing not free? Were they playing with anxiety in their mind? Stuff like that. Clint Hurt seems like he coaches with anxiety, like palpable anxiety, especially when it's not going well. So, et cetera, et cetera. It could be something a little more metaphysical, going on.
That could be it. He always seems kind of a step behind. I think that also comes if you're like kind of thinking about the past and then you just get run on, like you're then left reeling, Right. Anyway, we can explore that in more detail. It was very frustrating that, often it seemed Kyler Murray had wide open dudes, and it wasn't just a case of like finding the zone beater. It was like actual busts. He finishes 22 of 30 for 262 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 0 interceptions. They had an early down pass success rate in the 77th. An overall pass success rate in the 77th percentile. EPA per play, though, was 94th percentile passing the football, which is astonishing. Have you seen their receivers?
Yeah, just embarrassing. Like, just making it easy on them. And so when it comes to like before we get into the deep conversation, when it comes to getting better, there is so much room for improvement that would require like 0 investment to improve at. Theoretically, like you getting better than this would like skyrocket them into like from 32nd to like whatever 22nd alone before making even changes by just getting your shit together. Like it's like just getting, just like tightening your grip a little bit is it's just embarrassing, but it doesn't have to be that much change to like get a big chunk of this better than it currently is. I don't think it needs to be a lot of change to improve the whole overall picture anyway, in terms of tangible change. These things turn around quickly and they can dissolve quickly. We see that every single season, and I'm excited to talk about that later on in this episode and, throughout the whole spring and everything. But anyway, it's embarrassing, man. And Pete's resignation on the sideline, I think part of it isn't like necessarily indicative of what he thinks his future is. It's more just him in disbelief about how bad it is, probably because he probably thinks that they're seeing improvement during practice and then this happens on game day or whatever.
Well, and they'll have, like we said, they'll have prepared for this. They'll have had this call, like very ready for this, and they still get gashed on it.
How did that not work? Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's defense.
Yeah. So offense, Griff. Well, okay, from like a very kind of broad overview of the offense this game, it felt like they had way more talent than the Cardinals in terms of receivers versus their DBs. It felt like, after the opening script, that it could be like a big game. It looked like Geno Smith was ready to play. But then after the opening script, it felt like anecdotally, without looking at the data yet, that they stalled in the third quarter, as has been typical, and they only really started moving the ball again in the kind of up-tempo situation, particularly through the air, where it looked like a disaster. So what's interesting is they finished the game 91st in rushing percentile, 91st in success rate percentile, rushing the football. And if you look at hold on, let me just show you guys this. If you look at rbsdm.com, the box score, Like it's all green, other than their first down passing percentage, really, and their late passing was bad, which speaks to their struggles on third down. That being said, if you look at how the Seahawks performed on third down on the day, they actually finished 6 of 12, which is inside just that 50% mark that they're looking to hit. So I don't know, Griff. Do you kind of agree that before looking at this and just watching the game, it felt frustrating in a lot of aspects? I mean,
Yeah.
what I'd say is if you look at their drives, there's that series punt from the third quarter to the drive where they finish 8 minutes 20 seconds in the fourth quarter, I believe that is. So 4 punts in a row after going field goal, punt, touchdown, field goal is hella frustrating. And it's why really Seattle should have lost this game when their defense couldn't stop, anything.
Yeah. And considering quality of opponent, I know the Cardinals, Gannon, ironically, has them playing inspired, but they're not good. And you like to score more than 21 points. 21 points on 9 drives is an okay, good day, but controlling for opponent, you can definitely say they should have scored.
I think,
more.
Griff, I think your mic might have gone weird, or is it mine?
Oh, chat, can you hear me all right? Or
no, I fixed it. It was me. Sorry. Please continue.
Okay. All right, chat, clip that chat.
Clip that chat.
Matty embarrassed himself again.
Yep, on live television.
Mojambo confirmed it. You can hear me fine. And Carl, thank you, Carl. Thank you, Mojambo. But so all that considered, I mean, they were in the green, like you showed. High success rate. They did well run and pass. I think because the negatives were all clustered together as opposed to maybe distributed more evenly. I mean, I don't know. But that's what football is. Like it ebbs and flows. I mean, it's rarely that you go drive or touchdown, punt, field goal, punt, touchdown, punt. You know what I mean? It's sometimes it clusters. It's not like we've seen throughout the year where, I mean, a lot of people have projected this, like these themes onto them, like, oh, slow starts and they get it together in the second half, or fast starts and then they trail off in the second. I mean, it's not, there really hasn't been a theme.
Yeah, I think that's what's so frustrating about the offense, though. I think there's issues each week, and they kind of seem random in that. But the consistent theme is there's always a stalling element. And then third downs, although they had improved in the kind of second half of the season, they were bad against Pittsburgh. I mean, 6 of 12 days better, isn't it? But they've been kind of bad through the year as well. But
it's a lapse. In the aggregate, they've definitely been bad because they were, they went from horrifically bad the first half of the season to decent in the second half. And, one half horrific plus one half decent is still going to add up to bad, in the aggregate.
And then
I think there's some encouraging signs, though, that those third downs improved without the protection really improving that much.
That's what I was going to say. That is encouraging, but on the flip side, it's again frustrating that, Geno was sacked 0 times today, which I believe is more kind of testament to his pocket maneuvering again and getting rid of the ball at the right time, launching it to a guy who's out there knowing it's not going to get completed, but avoiding intentional grounding and even more crucially, avoiding the sack, right? But it looked bad in the pocket for him. And I know you tweeted, Griff, about when they're backed up on, was it 3rd and 7 near their own goal line, where they just bust pass protection, where the back should full slide to the backside edge, and Geno has a rusher tip the football, which he tries to launch to DK Metcalf. The pass pro, that's been a problem. And
there were some assignment busts too from the running backs.
Yep.
Which is, young players, but frustrating.
I kind of, obviously we haven't watched the tape. I kind of liked it. It seemed like they had an all right plan. Like I liked how they were getting into, split backfield looks, be it with a tight end and a running back, it was usually with a tight end and running back, but essentially to be able to pick up the Cardinals cover 0 looks. I liked how Waldron, and you again tweeted about this, but used multiple tight ends to force the Cardinals into base to then, know that they're going to likely be in an odd structure and then just pick on the dropping outside backer, get kind of cheap yardage, get matchups on him. And I mean, that Geno target to Will Dissly against Gardeck was the kind of peak example of that. That was brilliant. Brilliant stuff. And, Waldron's done that before against a similar defensive structure in the Eagles where he kind of picked on how they were constructing their stuff. And we looked at the tape of that. So, yeah, it looks okay. I was a bit concerned with the run game, they only have 25 attempts, which Pete Carroll would have liked to have been higher, and it felt they were trying to get it higher. Again, when your defense plays like that, it's hard to get the attempts. Time of possession, wow. Cardinals 36 minutes, 3 seconds with the football. Seattle 23 minutes, 57 seconds. But the run game concerned me in the sense that it was a lot of Kenneth Walker creativity, particularly towards the start of the game. That's kind of how his explosives went. And maybe that's why they kind of went over it for a period. I don't, or went away from it for a period and then returned to it.
Maybe. I do think though the backside combos were getting pretty good wash though.
They were, yeah.
Which was nice to see
for Forsyth. And this Cardinals run defense is abysmal. I think there's I think Seattle's worse, but I think the Cardinals are like the second worst or third worst. It depends what you look at, but
for sure,
yeah,
it's not good.
So, yeah, I don't really know what more to say about the offense. Chat, do you have anything else you want to talk about the game, or do you want to move on a bit to the aftermath? Let me try and catch up here with what you're all saying. Let's move it on. I honestly, I don't really know what to say about that game because they should have lost. There was a lot of similarities to other problems this season.
Here I think we can say this. I think one thing we can say is that the offense, even when the offense is making mistakes and stuff, like they were playing like they had the resolve of a playoff offense. I think they showed that in the Steelers game. They showed that this game, like they're like not giving up type of thing. They didn't exhibit the depressed energy that the defense showed at times, that we kind of observed anecdotally and everyone observed. I don't think that applied to the offense. When it, as it relates to like locker room vibes and everything, like the offense always came to play in that vein, I think. So
yeah.
The offense never died, rather.
Yeah. So the future. Prior to this game, it emerged, and Black Monday, is that what they call it?
Yeah,
is tomorrow, where coaches will probably get fired. They do get fired, and it emerged via Tom Pelissero, Ian Rappaport on NFL.com. They reported that the Seahawks are to evaluate their future after the season. And the text read, the Seahawks always are evaluating and updating contingency plans in the event longtime coach Pete Carroll, now 72 years old, decides to walk away. And then it says how Jody Allen meets with Carroll and general manager John Schneider after the season concludes. And interestingly, as Bob Condotta of the Seattle Times noted, this report is the first time it's been said that Carroll's contract, which I think previously had been reported as lasting through 2025, is actually through 2024 with an option for 2025 that can be exercised this offseason. So how much we find out about this contract details is interesting. Who kind of gave this tip to Rappaport and Pelissero is interesting too. And naturally, when something like this comes out, there's always going to be speculation about the future and the head coach. So here, I don't know how much you'd want to read into the sideline posture. This is Pete Carroll looking upset after the touchdown run, as I've spoke about. This is Pete Carroll looking excited after the winning touchdown. Ultimately, this is Pete excited about the missed field goal. Kind of looks like a normal reaction. This is Pete walking to the middle of the field, and then this is Pete holding hands with Jonathan Gannon saying "well done," and then this is his left hand man, and this shot saying well done. Maybe it's well done on the season. Is that Pete Carroll's last moment with the Seahawks? Probably not. But I know there was a lot of speculation. Greg Bell of the Tacoma News Tribune asked Pete Carroll, do you want to coach the Seahawks again next season? He said, I do. Then he said, do you expect to coach the Seahawks next season? He said, I do. And then he said, at this point, I do. So not, I mean, he has to meet with Jody Allen. We'll have to see. But it's something to monitor at least. I know there's been a sense that it's nearing the end, but then it would be my take is it would be such a kind of damp way to go out, not making the playoffs. Okay, you managed to luck into a winning record really this year. Your wins this season ultimately came against largely bad teams, and you needed a lot of game-winning drives to do it. They were tight games. Yeah, you had a tough schedule this year. That's true, and you also lost some games where you may have felt you could have won. But yeah, Griff, how do you read all this Pete Carroll stuff? I know there's a massive and ever-growing kind of section of the fan base that's kind of done with Pete.
Yeah. As far as reading in between the lines of what Rappaport reported and the line of questioning and Carroll's responses in the interview, I don't get anything. I don't, right or wrong, despite what you want to have happen. I don't get the sense that he's going to be fired or that he isn't in control of his own employment status.
No, that read like he might decide he's done all he can and he's going to walk away, which, given the repeated issues on defense, despite the changes influenced by Pete, possibly. Maybe.
I think he's still pretty. I think he's pretty energized by the nucleus of the roster still. When they traded Russ away and that press conference, it didn't seem like his exit was imminent. He seemed like he was still talking about the future, with the future meaning like an indefinite period. So I don't know. I just don't get the vibe that he feels like he wants to walk away yet. I don't think he's done.
I did start wondering. There was a Wednesday, January 3rd press conference where he was talking about the future, and again, Greg Bell followed up and asked about, do you see this as a job undone because of the youthful players that Seattle have, kind of implying that there's more to come. And Pete never used, and he, last season when it was going bad, but also looking ahead to the future, Pete really did use like the singular, personal, first person stuff like I, etc. He didn't respond like that at all. And language is important, as Carroll himself would acknowledge. Maybe it's just because he was focusing on this Arizona game, wasn't thinking ahead. The next few days are going to be huge. I don't know if he'll have his Monday radio show, but that's where he'll get, I'm sure, a bit more. He'll show he's been a bit more introspective about the future, and he'll share that with Brock and Salk. And then the end of season press conference he does with the media will be fascinating, because last year he was very candid and open about what needed to change, and the same issues remain. So be interesting to hear what he says, or maybe we do get a surprise, or maybe it's not a surprise given what we've heard. I don't know, or what we've seen, but it's definitely something to monitor, Pete Carroll. And I know, Griff, a large section of the fan base is tired of him, even though, as we've said, 2 winning seasons in like a mini rebuild. It could be a lot worse. I mean, how many winning seasons has Kyle Shanahan had, and how many, he went 4-12 one year, right?
Yeah, I mean, if Kyle doesn't have what he wants on offense, he's not winning. He's not going to be the guy that's going to Jeff Fisher his way and scrap his way to 7, 8, 9 wins. But when he's loaded and loaded outside of quarterback, he can almost do anything with any quarterback, it seems.
Did you see Sam Darnold's numbers today?
14 for 19.
The advanced stuff.
Well, it was efficient, right?
Yeah, it was nuts. It was out of this world. It was MVP caliber.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, Shanahan he'll be on both ends of the spectrum. Pete isn't going to crater like that. So anyway, what was the question here?
I don't even know, Griff. Let's
Should we, well, you were speaking in general about Pete and everything. I'm on a completely refreshed, clean slate mindset in terms of 2022 when they fired Ken Norton Jr. and then they moved forward with Geno. I'm like, this is a new trajectory. This is a new arc completely. And I don't conflate or combine the defense of the last 2 years with the 4 years prior. I mean, and now the 4 years with Ken weren't good enough, and I don't want Pete to think that was good enough either, but they transitioned the cap expenditure toward the offense and they built around Russell Wilson. That's where the resources went. And they registered average defenses on well below average defensive investment. And so the defense was not bad enough to sink a top flight offense, or at least a high-end offense. And then from there, as it relates to the offense, if we use the last 2 years in Denver as any measuring stick, now I do think Wilson has inherently regressed a little, I don't know, maybe more than a little bit physically, but I think we can assess what Carroll did with Russell Wilson and his coordinators on offense as more or less as maximizing the offensive potential with Russell Wilson. I don't think he wasted Russ at all. So the resources, in order to maximize him, had to shift away from defense and shift toward the offense. People bemoan the 3 playoff losses, flaming out in the wild card. They were 1-score games, coin flip, etc. They probably weren't going to win in the divisional, or if they did, win in the NFC Championship in any of those 3 years. But I think that those teams were more or less maximized. And we also have to remember, coming off the 2017 year, people were very critical. They thought they weren't going to get to the playoffs again when the Legion of Boom got injured and was cut and everything. I think the mistake Pete made was that he probably was wrong in rallying around Wilson. He probably should have moved on. Their potential probably was capped, at least their potential together. That said, they were still highly successful. I don't think Pete did a bad coaching job at all from 2018 through 2020, and then the misfortune of 2021 with his quarterback getting hurt. I think if he made a mistake, it was probably he and John Schneider probably should have gone another direction and tried to change the quarterback situation sooner. I think that's where I'm at with that. Now, we can debate that, but I think that people don't view that period fairly at all. Where the 2018 to 2021 period. That being said, I still view 2022 and on as separate from those years completely. And we need to view the past 2 years just as the past 2 years. That doesn't mean this year can't be enough to fire a guy. If that's not good enough and you have higher standards and you want results right now, okay, fine.
Excuse me, Griff.
Oh, yeah.
Hayden, grow up. Grow up, Hayden. You're banned. Yeah, Griff. I think that's a good point. There is it's easy to. There's long been a preconceived dislike of Pete Carroll, and I think it's inevitable that, or sadly inevitable in a way, 72 years old, age does become a thing in people's minds. That if Pete was 57, would we be having this discussion, Griff?
No chance.
Because he's still winning.
Right.
It's just people, and then I do get from a fan base perspective, and the Seahawks fans have been spoiled, like really spoiled compared to, I mean, for context, guys, Arizona, excuse me, water is needed, but Arizona, they haven't won a home game since 2021. Like, there's levels to this. This is still a team who is frisky. They still play hard, even though there's been some kind of weird looking dejection on the defense, but they still play hard. They didn't quit. I do understand, though, from a fan perspective, the perceived kind of lack of progress. And yeah, as Neugash points out, 1 playoff win in 7 years. coming up short in various ways, the kind of reshuffling of stuff, but the fact that, Pete Carroll is the consistent thing when they do come up short. I do understand all of that. I think, where we've disagreed on this, if we look at this 2-year period, right, where we've disagreed is year one, the defensive scheme, as we kind of highlighted, was an absolute disaster. And then personnel decision-wise, year two, we weren't that excited about Bobby Wagner returning, and then how much he was playing, and then the slowness in the middle of the field of the defense. And this isn't to scapegoat individual players, but it's to point out that, and then we knew Uchenna Nwosu was a massively important player, and we said about that, and then personnel-wise, they were lacking like another big edge to complement Draymond Jones, and they were going to have a real issue with the structure they were intent on playing, even though they had kind of solidified their way of doing it. Sitting in that structure so long was a bit of a thing. So, there are obviously issues. I just think, the thing is, Griff, the one thing I'd say is where does it go from? Where does it go from here? Like, how does it get any better? And I think that's where it might feel like it's wanting to see change, because you've had this for quite a while, and then you can't see the progress from Pete Carroll as the head coach. I do empathize with that, while I may not totally agree.
I totally empathize with it. I understand the perspective. I understand why someone would. I don't. I think people are working with different like operating premises with a lot of it. Again, like for the offense, the past 2 years is just a completely different world than the years before that. So, like you're on a different track, different trajectory. They're different things. There's nothing, whatever frustrations people might have had with the offense prior to 2022, they no longer apply to 2022 and 2023. Whatever issues you have, they're new. They're completely new. If you have issues, like wide sweeping ones, defensively, again, I think it's its own thing. When it comes to the defense, ultimately, my mind goes, it's as simple as this: Pete just made the wrong hire. He screwed up and made the wrong hire. He might have been right to fire Ken Norton Jr. We were both on the record as not wanting him to before the season ended, and then not liking it when it happened. And then we were kind of curious to see what Hurt would do, because we kind of figured, well, is by promoting Hurt keeping the supposedly good stuff of Ken Norton Jr., but then bringing in Desai and Scott improves on the bad stuff. There was logic to that thinking. A lot of people kind of embraced it in good faith, even people that were critical of Pete, and it didn't work. I think it's as simple as that. He just fucked up and made the wrong hire. I think that there is enough talent on the team, at least of the players that are meant to be your stars, that are meant to be good. There's enough talent there, and that minor moves to kind of buttress the floor a little bit, which is those are moves that there's turnover on that part of your roster every single year that every team makes. They are not costly. If you just simply make those moves, and I think Schneider, to his credit, typically makes better floor moves, makes better moves for the floor of his roster than people give him credit for. If he just gets back to like getting on track there, I think they have more high-end talent than they've had during the Ken Norton Jr. years. That by making the right hire at DC, this defense can skyrocket. And to outright dismiss the possibility of that doesn't make any sense to me, because the past 2 years they've had stretches of playing high-end defense. Now, again, I'm not saying they were actually as good as their numbers, because it was ephemeral in length. The duration wasn't a super long time, and strength of opponent. But the fact is, it speaks to the raw potential of it. So you need a better coach or a better hire to make sure you stay toward your potential more. I don't think it's at all a wild statement to say that at full strength, the ones anyway, there's more talent on this group, on this defensive roster this year than there was at any of the 4 years that Ken Norton Jr. had. I don't think that's wild at all to say. So it's just a matter of finding the right guy, and I'm excited to talk about potential coordinator hires, assuming that they fire Clint, because we're just assuming that'll happen. But I'm excited to talk about that. So when we get there, but
has Pete fired someone after 2 years? Probably offensive coordinator.
Yeah, Jeremy Bates was after 1 year.
Bates,
right? Yeah, Shoddy had 3 years on offense. He's a little more finicky on offense, but then offensively, I mean, we have to remember how critical people were of Pete Carroll when it comes to offense in general, right? He's proven them wrong at like almost every single bullet point. He's proved them wrong as far as what he thinks about football. Can he do anything offensively without Russell Wilson? We've seen high-end stretches the past 2 years, and then we've seen bad stretches. And I think we can connect that to supporting cast regression.
Well, and it's the same thing with the high-end stretches on the defense feel very Pete influenced, or the things that they've been good at. Anyway.
Tim, to answer your question, yeah, I would. I don't think that's crazy at all to say that. I'm not saying it will happen, but again, it's more like I think the talent's there. On paper at full health, I don't think a lot of buttons need to be pushed in order for the chance to be there for a better coach to make it happen on defense.
Yeah, because I mean, Mafe Nwosu Taylor, not Taylor. Not Taylor. Taylor is like a very situational pass rusher, maybe. Draymond Jones is your 3 edges with like another player. And then if you can re-sign Leonard Williams, and we'll talk about off-season like immediate priorities in a bit, but Jaron Reed, maybe another supplementary player, or Cam Young ascending, like some more speed at inside back with Jordan Brooks, and then you got to work out what the heck is going on with Rick Woolen, and your safety group. Like it should be good enough. Like it should be better than that.
If you are whatever DC vacancy jobs there will be this year, this spring, assuming the Seahawks are one of them, the Seahawks are going to be on the short list of most desirable positions. Any defensive coordinator is going to look at whatever, excusing whatever the fan base's perception of Tariq Woolen is. They're going to look at Tariq Woolen, Devin Witherspoon, and yes, Quandre Diggs, who can cover. And they're going to think, I can do a lot with this. And any defensive coordinator that doesn't think that isn't a good defensive coordinator.
The kind of alternative viewpoint, Griff, would be a defensive coordinator doesn't want to work under Pete Carroll's control. But as we saw with Clint Hurt and Sean Desai in year 1, he gave them like full reign to do whatever the heck they wanted.
It's just more garbage projected onto Pete.
And this year, this is very much what Hurt wanted to do in terms of the heavy like nickel even front approach, but also the way he puts guys in a lot of kind of win your one-on-one matchup situation, right? But Pete just kind of helped him fix it a bit in terms of how they did the run stuff, and it did work to start off with.
Now there's not a lack of an unwillingness to embrace quote unquote modernized ideas. That's not what is going on here at all. It's not that.
Yeah. And I think that's hopefully what we're going to aim to do in this off-season chat is find the truth, right? Not our opinion, but find the truth, data, tape review, all that good stuff, and then explore the solution, because there's a lot of kind of it's an emotional topic, isn't it? It's very frustrating. But when you kind of calm down a second and evaluate things, I think they can look a bit different. Right. So Griff, this kind of leads us into the off season.
All right.
Believe it or not.
Wow.
Greg Bell of the Tacoma News Tribune filmed a video in the locker room of the Seahawks, Julian Love. Who is this? Is that Okada?
Yeah, it's Okada.
Reek Woolen, Witherspoon, Mike Jackson.
They're having a good time.
They're having a good time smoking cigars, right? Despite not making the playoffs.
For that.
Julian Love then quote tweets that saying, insinuating that we're celebrating not making the playoffs is weak, Greg. These cigars were given to me to celebrate the birth of my son, and I waited until the end of the season to share a moment with my guys.
There we go.
And Reek Woolen on his Instagram also, before that, posted, celebrating my dog, Julian M. Love. Congrats on the newborn and Pro Bowl brother. On the flip side, John Ryan, former... Was he an all-pro punter? Must have made a Pro Bowl. Anyway, he tweets, the Seahawk way is a bit different these days, I guess. I could say a lot of things right now because I'm shaking with anger, but I'll just say I'm really disappointed. Griff, this kind of can lead into a bit of a cultural discussion in terms of the Seahawk, given the Seahawk way is a bit different now these days, that type of stuff. Do you feel a certain type of way about this? I mean, in his press conference afterwards, Pete Carroll's kind of asked about like where this victory ranks for him, which was a kind of a bit of a strange question. He said some guys are smoking cigars in the locker room. I don't know what that's about, which sounded a bit dismissive, but now we know what it's about. John Ryan's upset about it. Should we see if he's done any other tweets?
Has he backtracked?
Oh, no, hold on. I need to find it. Anyway, Griff, how do you feel about this? Is this a disgrace?
I don't fucking care. If they're smoking cigars in the locker room, that's like they're celebrating his kid. That's all it is. I think when people are like John Ryan's more so, when he sees that and he's like, I know how hard we worked and everything during their period, and then they see that after not making it to the playoffs, he thinks, what are you celebrating? He just doesn't have context, and he's probably worked up that the season went the way it did. But also it's the punter. So like, why is the punter doing that?
My opinion on this is it is a nice moment. But as Ian Furness tweets of KJR,
yeah, no.
This will be discussed a lot. We'll just add, not everyone in the locker room is happy with the celebration and cigar smoke following a season when they fell short of the postseason. Everyone will have an opinion, but I know there are many vets in there who share John's opinion. That doesn't surprise me, and I did wonder if that would somewhat divide the locker room, or because it is a bit of an odd thing to do. Like, can you not meet up tomorrow and do it? It's cool that you had your kid last week. Great, you made the Pro Bowl. But it's a bit nice. It's a bit comfortable to do this after you failed, to make the playoffs. And a lot of vets will have had loftier expectations than going 9-8. I get it. Does it really matter? No. But then does it matter? Does it say more about the Seahawks culture? Probably not. But if you were on Sports Talk Radio, it would. And I'm sure Sports Talk Radio will talk about this. I saw... I don't know if Condre Dick didn't like it, Connor. He just says, I'm a vet. I'm used to kind of making the playoffs. And Neugas, you're saying Bobby Wagner didn't like it. What did Bobby Wagner exactly say? I just don't think they're coming at it from the same angle. And I think it must be frustrating, especially when like Reek Williams looking all happy after he's played like absolute crap in another game. It's being kind of content with this level, but we're no good at doing topics like this, and I don't really care necessarily. But
yeah, I don't.
I do think
it's in either direction, really.
I do think though, there's certainly what point was it that the Seahawks culture, like, or their way of drafting, like grit, and like the types of players they looked for changed slightly? Because they said there was like a shift in their philosophy, right?
Yeah, but didn't they say they were trying to get back to what they were doing these past two drafts?
Yeah, and Yeah, but I think there's some stuff about maybe the characters they were going after changed somewhat. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean,
I just think this team needs a few more, and is semi-related or semi, as you guys would say, related to that picture, but not really. But it kind of leads into that.
maybe.
They need to get back to being more cutthroat. Like you can't like re-signing Bobby Wagner because he's a cultural legend, future Hall of Famer, future Ring of Honor member. He's a solid veteran who people look up to. Re-signing him like on almost a sentimental basis cannot happen. Jamal Adams, while it's really nice that you're supporting him and you've been through a lot together, you have to cut. You just have to cut him.
Yeah.
Now you might be able to work out a restructure where he makes his way back, but they need to be cutthroat in this offseason. They also I don't know if it's been discussed enough, but Jamal Adams wasn't moving right for a lot of the season. Why didn't they just shut him down? Why did they keep letting him try and play? It was obvious he wasn't the same type of player. So that's kind of the cutthroat thing you could kind of criticize. And obviously there's a benefit of hindsight too, but I think they tried to enact some stuff when it comes into corner, having a bit of a rotation going. Reek Woolen getting benched for a bit. Mike Jackson spotting with Trey Brown. Not sure how well that worked in this game. But it did it actually help Reek Woolen? I mean, against the Eagles, he got a bit lucky on some plays, which you don't see on the broadcast, but on the tape, you're like, ooh, didn't do very well there.
Right.
Devon Witherspoon's a great start, and he is in this cigar picture, which shows how you can. It's a bit silly, isn't it? But he was absolutely astonishing in this past game. We probably should have mentioned that when we were talking about the game, but he was unbelievable in this game. Got back to his tackling itself, looked to shake off the rust that was present last week, and was rocking dudes, tackling James Conner, not just tackling him, but hitting him. That's why they picked him 5th overall, not just for his physical talents or his skill set, but the kind of aggression, the intangibles, all of that kind of mental aspect stuff, the hyper competitiveness that saw Pete Carroll comparing to Troy Polamalu. They need, and that's like the first round version of that, but you can get that in the 5th round. They need to get back to that, and they need to get back to playing the best players. And I think culturally, it's quite hard to say you're playing the best players when Bobby Wagner might be your best middle linebacker on the roster, not named Jordan Brooks at least, and he might be a cultural leader, and he might be a good vet, and he might still be hyper competitive, and he might have done really well representing himself and be highly respected in every kind of facet, a true pro. But he's an obvious, and again, don't want to scapegoat, but it's just an example. He's an obvious, he's a clash of, well, we're always competing, but are we? Because he cannot. That's not good.
He shouldn't be on the field on 3rd down. Jordan Brooks should be on the sideline on 3rd down.
Right. Why is Frank Clark getting out snapping Darryl Taylor? Derek Hall. Okay, Derek Hall. It might all be going quick for him, but Frank Clark is unplayable. Again, he's 240-ish pounds. What's that about? There's probably all kinds of other examples. But I think from a front office perspective, they can be. And Monjombo asks, do I mean cutting current players and or acquisition? I think I mean both. They need to push Reek Woolen this season by doing something with corner or something. It just feels a bit nice, and players talk, praise the culture in Seattle, but when John Ryan says the Seahawks way is a bit different these days, I guess, about that cigar pictures, because if the Legion of Boom group would probably been fighting after a loss, and they wouldn't give a crap if someone, they'd be warring, and you hear the stories about that team. And I think it swung a bit too far away from that type of mindset.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is.
Right.
Griff, do you have anything to add on that? I just kind of did a word salad.
No, I agree. They clearly need to find whatever piece of this is the root of, like, not having the right mentality and whatever, and maybe not just what we see on the field, but maybe that will help them smooth out whatever problems they're having during the practice week that's leading to busts and mistakes out on the field. So it's, but like right now, here how I see it is, last year they for 3 months sustained top 10 pass defense. 3 months. The run defense was so bad, like, we didn't even pay attention to how good the pass defense was. So the pass defense was good. The only roster changes from well, they were in the back seven. There were three changes. You went from Ryan Neal to Julian Love. That should equal out. There shouldn't be a difference there. You lost Cody Barton and you replaced him with Bobby Wagner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's that. But then you also have Devin Witherspoon, who was far and away an upgrade on the nickel spot last year. Everything else is the same.
Right.
So if you downgraded in coverage at linebacker, but upgraded at nickel and stayed the same as strong safety, and you have absolutely plummeted, then for the same reasons that you can plummet, you can also find your way back up without significant major changes occurring. That's my general outlook with all of this. You do not need to make 4 or 5 changes in the back seven. You don't need to add 3 more pass rushers. They also fell with the pass rush being demonstrably better this year than last year too.
Yeah.
And the pass rush is not great. It's like barely above average.
So Griff, to your point, you did also kind of you tweeted an example of this is the Baltimore Ravens.
Right. So when they traded for Roquan Smith in the middle of the season, they transformed. They were 28th in defense overall from weeks 1 through week 8. Weeks 9 through 18, they were 4th. And 2 things happened. They traded for Roquan Smith, and Kyle Hamilton went from a 33 snap player to a 75 snap player at nickel. And only 2 things happened. And guess what? No one got hurt. They all stayed healthy. So they acquired very little, like, change occurred in terms of actual tangible changes, but it was just the right player in the right spot that unlocked certain things that allowed Patrick Queen to be used differently, to where they can actually apply his skill sets in a way. And Kyle Hamilton coming of age, like, he also plays a pivotal position that allows them to live in certain packages. Him playing nickel, like Devin Witherspoon was transformative when he plays nickel. What needs to happen is they need to just move Brooks to Mike. They need to hammer out Devin Witherspoon's role, and they need to bring back Leonard Williams and draft 1 more pass rusher. And in terms of tangible things that needs to happen, the rest is just a coaching staff that makes sure Tariq Woolen doesn't shit his pants. And at the most, terrible time. Like, there doesn't need to be all these levers pulled. There really
I hate it when you shit your pants at the most terrible time.
Yeah, especially when
there's always, like, there are good times to shit your pants, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's very circumstantial, Matty.
Right. I bet.
But it's just, it doesn't need to be a lot of change. It really doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. These things are, they say being greater than the sum of your parts, like I mentioned last time. You can be worse than the sum of your parts too, because things can multiply together. When you're greater than the sum of your parts aren't adding together, they're multiplying together. The same thing can happen in the other direction. This year, things multiplied together negatively, and that first domino was Uchenna Nwosu. That mattered so much. And yes, it's just one player, but Roquan Smith was just one player too. And if people say, but Roquan Smith is a way better linebacker than Uchenna Nwosu is an edge defender, I would agree with you, but also consider that Roquan Smith came from like the 30th ranked defense in Chicago, and the year before that, they were like 28th. So he wasn't good enough to stop that from happening. So it's the combination of players, and then it's how the scheme flows and follows from that. It just doesn't need to be that much change. I really think, like, John Schneider's job this offseason is pretty easy. Cut Jamal Adams, keep Jordan Brooks, keep Leonard Williams, and then go make your usual moves that you make to buttress the depth. You bring back Julian Love. You hope that he kind of returns, kind of plays a better season, the full year of what he showed, maybe in the final third of the season. And then you just go nail the draft. Go draft an edge rusher, then go draft a day 2 linebacker who is just competent, who can just run and hit, and you'll take off the field when you go into nickel and dime and stuff. It doesn't have to be this much. It really doesn't.
Yeah. So kind of leading into that then, Gord, thank you so much for the donation, Gord. Gord asking, thank you for the great content this year. You're very welcome. Do we need a game breaker on defense? Well, remember, after that 49ers defeat, Pete Carroll was asked a very similar question about who the game breakers are on defense after he'd praised the 49ers for having so many kind of impactful players. And he mentioned Jordan Brooks, identified him as a game breaker. He mentioned Quandre Diggs as a kind of game breaker, game wrecker, as Griff goes off for a second. And he said they said they need to get a few more. I think Uchenna Nwosu's kind of emerged as that to an extent. And then obviously Devin Witherspoon has. But you always need as many as possible, right? It's always nice to have more and more and more. And Gord, now the Seahawks draft position is official. Let's find out live together. Let's find out what's the Seahawks actual draft pick. Because why I asked that is, it's probably 14th, right? Or is it 15th? But that should be where you can get a pretty good edge, or you may be able to trade down if you like how it shakes out. Oh, the Seahawks are 16th in the NFL draft after going 9-8. I mean, that's pretty solid. Now, the other news today, which I probably should have opened the show with, is the Denver Broncos. They lost, so they finished the season 8-9, and the New Orleans Saints won, so they finished season 9-8. Why that matters is that means the Seahawks get the New Orleans Saints pick in the 3rd round of the 2024 draft. So 14, 28. No, it doesn't work like that, does it? They'll be picking 14th in the 3rd round, and also 16th. You can very easily, that gives a lot of flexibility. If they feel they're needing to jump up a ledge or down a ledge, they can really maneuver around the draft. So, Gord, thanks for the donation. Obviously, they do need a game breaker, and I think that brings me to Griff. Good to have you back. Did Leonard Williams disappoint you this year? Was that a disappointment?
No, he's cool. He's cool. They got exactly what they paid for with him.
Yeah. And I think that kind of speaks to, I guess he didn't take over a game necessarily.
I don't think he was ever that guy, though.
I don't think he was ever that. It was just the range below that. And it's just hard to find those guys. That's why they're so valuable. Honestly, like for Diggs to make plays, as we've seen this year, you need a lot of other things to be right. Even Jordan Brooks, you need a lot of other things to be right. All that good stuff. Now, interestingly, before this game, Brett Coleman tweeted out, and Brett did tweet it out, but he didn't mention where he got these figures from. I could have looked it up. But the 10 lowest pass rush win rates among NFL edge rotations. Oh, well, if it's pass rush win rates, it'll probably be ESPN, won't it? Anyway, the Seahawks come in 3rd worst in the league. That was before this week. 16.4% pass rush win rate. I don't know how much of that is really trying to get the edges to play run first or read blocks against the run, and how much they kind of stunt their edge down and then loop the tackle around to kind of play run and then pass. But I mean, that's just bad. That's just not good enough. And I know Boye Mafe, he didn't get a sack today, did he? So he's actually missing out on his double-digit sack total. First time a Seahawks player would have done that since Frank Clark and Jaron Reed in 2018. But 9 sacks on the year, it's okay, isn't it? Yeah. So yeah, they obviously they need game breakers on defense. Every defense needs that. It's very hard to win in the NFL without that. the Ravens is an interesting example. And Griff, people would say, why don't they run the Ravens exact defense? What if you have thoughts on that? Let me know. But David, thank you so much for the donation.
Thank you, David.
David saying thanks for the work. We're all disappointed, but you guys bring insight. We can debate its rightness, but you all don't just whine. I appreciate that. Thanks, David. We might whine in a bit.
We'll do
It depends what happens with certain positions. Yeah.
We appreciate that, though.
That's true. They've got Mike Morris to return, who's I don't think we'd think of him as a game breaker, but that would have been like the other big edge type. Could he play outside back? He did kind of play outside. He's probably a bit too large, so it'd have been interesting to see if he'd have spotted Draymond Jones on the edge to alleviate the Taylor issue.
Like in the 2-4-5 nickel, absolutely, he would moonlight there, especially as you said when the Wilson went out. He would absolutely be comfortable with that, from especially from a reading the play out perspective too, not just physically. He'd be really adept at that. I don't know, Matty. How would you answer the question about just run the Ravens scheme?
If only that simple, right? I think it's clear Mike McDonald's a damn good coach, right?
Right.
But to have sustained success is difficult. I also think that they're kind of trying to do a lot of elements of that. I'd need to dive into the Ravens a lot more. I think it's a massive indictment, really, of the whole coaching staff. The more I think about it, I don't know if we've said this on the pod already, but they came in, right? The defensive coaching staff, they came in 2022 and were like, we're going to move to a few more Fangio principles up front. We're going to coach that, and we're going to run the nickel overlook so much, and we're going to play with a 2-eye nose all the time and all that sort of stuff, right? So they came in doing that. Great. They couldn't coach it. They were unable to coach it. And it's not like they're not able to hire their dudes or pick their staff. They picked these guys to coach it and they couldn't, which is bad.
Guys that have coached at other stops, yeah.
Right. And then this year they Pete Carroll it up again, or Kiffin it up. They get Bo Pelini in to help them with the over fronts, the nickel over fronts. They do really well to start with, and then they get completely outdone as the season progresses, and they just can't. I think maybe they have some similarities in the thinking of what they're trying to do to the Mike McDonald thing, but they can't coach it. So I kind of come back to that.
Mike McDonald isn't the only one running the Mike McDonald scheme.
Right.
I mean, what makes it special is him. It's not
Phil, game planning.
Right. It's not proprietary knowledge. It's proprietary application. The Seahawks aren't lacking anything they're not lacking anything on paper that is like cool. Like there isn't like cool stuff they're not doing. It's really not the issue. It's not the what, it's the when, how you coach it, etc. Really, right? When they were playing good defense, they again, which didn't last for long, but when they did, there was a semblance of like, okay, this is what Clint Hurt thinks about football because he's scheming from a point of strength when his roster was at full health. Mm-hmm. And he felt that he had assumptions, like when a DC can work with assumptions, like I know I can do this. So this could be my pivot foot, so I can do this with my non-pivot foot, schematically.
Right.
You kind of tell like he had a first down philosophy, a second down philosophy. Third downs took a while, but he got there, but then everything just bottomed out. And then he was not the kind that he could problem solve at all. That's really my main criticism of Hurt. If you gave Clint Hurt a bona fide top 10 roster, I would not blink an eye if the defense was top 10, like top to bottom and say it stayed healthy, et cetera. I would not blink an eye if he registered a top 10 defense because he hasn't done anything when the talent's been there that when he also figured out his front structure where I thought like, okay, he doesn't know what to do with it. I've never thought that it's when he can't problem solve and then he compounds the problems. So the right guy can absolutely make a difference.
Right. Yeah. Henry, thank you very much. I did get your Stripe donation. Thank you. Much appreciated on that. And if
Sir.
you've got a question, please do ask that. Guys, I don't think the Stripe link is in this description. I will put it in if you're watching post live, watching the recap kind of thing. But if you do want to donate, you can use the super chat feature, which some of you have been kind enough to do already. Jen, love you guys, learned so much, and hope we keep getting content, including the draft and off-season pods. Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you,
Yeah. I mean, absolutely, you'll get content, including the draft and off-season pods, and kind of looking ahead to the draft. Griff, I don't know, I'm kind of perversely almost looking forward to how this all shakes out, because we saw like tangible change for them trying to fix the defense this year. It worked to an extent, and then stuff took hold. I'm really interested to see what direction they go in, and that's another reason why I want one more year. I think it's 2024 year for Carroll and Scheid is huge, of make progress. If they don't do it then, I'd be pretty leaning towards a bit of change. I think it's shocking, but so. I was asked by Ryan on Twitter what my 5 things would need to be done. We've talked about re-signing Jordan Brooks and then acquiring another fast runner and hitter inside backer. Now, it might be there's a blue chip dude who can play Mike. Well, that's great. Because what do we mean by blue chip? Well, kind of Jordan Brooks, right? Where, 240 plus pounds, you run in the 4.4s, you have instincts for the ball, you find the ball in college, you have a ton of tackle numbers, and then we coach everything else, right?
Right.
But it could, that is more likely to be particularly, premium versus non-premium positions. Don't know if they necessarily would do it like this, but they might. That could be like a 3rd round weak side backer. Now, I put here another bigger dude who can play the outside back at edge like Draymond Jones did to kind of alleviate the issues of Nwosu being out. I've put Keon White here. Obviously, he came out this past draft. We liked kind of what we saw there. We sort of talked about how he could do a bit of that for them. And then Michael Bennett. Imagine they've always been searching for Michael Bennett. It's so funny, Griff. We talk about front office lag with players. LJ Collier this year, if he'd been able to play outside backer, would that have saved him?
Right.
He felt so messed around, I think, by the team that they didn't let him play outside backer. They kept just pigeonholing him into 5 tech and then not playing him on the nickel downs. Probably not, guys, but...
Yeah. 0 sacks on the year, so...
What, Collier?
Yeah.
Yeah, he got hurt.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. But still, unacceptable. How dare he get 0 sacks while hurt? Abraham Lucas taking care of the knee in the off-season workouts, that it works, because when he came back from his knee injury, returned to playing action, he said to reporters in that press conference he had that he was going to take care of it in the off-season, like his knee issue. So clearly there's like a procedure or like a surgery or something he can do to hopefully fix that pain. But if he can't do that, then the Seahawks need a right tackle. And then my 5th point here I've put is they need interior offensive line. So the offensive line really did limit Geno Smith, and the offense, it really did. I don't want to it's so lazy just to pile on the offensive line. I always want to kind of push back on that, but just look at the pressure percentages versus the sack percentages. Look at when the offense performed well and how the time to throw really had to be good.
And what we just assume Charles Cross will get better, but he needs to get better too.
Okay, great. You've had your 2nd year. Now get better, please.
Time, because
elevate.
The combined tackle percentage they gave, even with Cross in the game, was high from the tackles.
Yeah. So this is only 5 kind of personnel points, Griff. I think we both agree about Clint Hurt moving on. Leonard Williams, I think if you can make that work, you've re-signed him because he's a damn good 3 tech, especially defending the run. And it's such a pain in the ass if you have to feel that. You really kind of have to make that work. And then people talk about a lack of cap space. Can they not? Aren't they? I mean, I don't necessarily know the exact numbers. I haven't had a chance to delve into it fully, but I'm pretty sure they can free up. If they extended Gino and cut dudes like Jamal Adams, Monet, like he's just sitting there. I think they can get about $60-ish million. I think I've seen that. So, maybe restructure stuff. I think they can re-sign Brooks and Williams, and then I don't actually know who else. Oh, Lewis. You want to re-sign Lewis, don't you, just for some continuity? But you just need another right guard to push Anthony Bradford. You need to find out what's happening with right tackle. And then you've got a draft inside backer, potentially like another day 3 safety, although I'm excited about what Jarek Reed can bring. I think safety is quite a big deal because if Adams isn't coming back, and he might do, we'll have to see how that shakes out. But if they cut him and he doesn't want to resign or whatever, maybe he retires. We'll have to see how that all works. But they need, if it depends on what's happening with the defensive staff as well, but they need like a big nickel, like safety you can't play Spoon, I don't think, in the slot as like you're kind of, I don't know, they need to work out his role and his fit. And if he can be that full-time nickel, maybe they move to more odd front structures where, again, there's an argument for having a big nickel safety, but then also if you're an odd front structure, it might mean that Spoon's like can hold up inside more. Not that his durability is a massive concern for me, but slight concern, I'd say. Playing so close to the line of scrimmage and hitting like bigger linemen, taking them on a lot. So, I mean, Griff, any other off-season priorities? Anything you want to raise?
No, I don't think they need to make any big free agent splashes. Just kind of make your your under $5 million type deals. I agree with you at weak side linebacker under the assumption they bring Brooks back and move him to Mike. If they can find another Brooks caliber skill set, okay, awesome. But if all else is taken care of, they just need a competent player. Like they just need their Alshire, they need their Dre Greenlaw there. It doesn't need to be a guy that you want to put all this responsibility on. If he can handle that, then you can just scheme accordingly. Just put more on him to help your scheme up. He doesn't have to do that, To have that option would be great. Unlike when the Seahawks had Cody Barton playing Will last year and they form a slot formation, he can just carry a seam route and they just attach a seam carry. Like the 49ers didn't do that with Dre Greenlaw very often because that's not his game. But he could come downhill, run and hit, and do all those things and provide a really high floor. That's all the Seahawks need out of their Will spot. Certainly Brooks was providing that, but it was like they're underusing him. And then also the negative dividends they're getting from Bobby. So they don't have to go crazy. Also, I don't like the idea of letting too many guys walk that don't need to walk, because then you're just talking about having more holes to fill. You're spinning your wheels at that point.
We've already said this, but it is crazy how they Poona Ford was a free agent, but what they did with the D-line last year we acknowledge the scheme is bad, but also you are now suddenly bad, and we're getting rid, even though those guys had all played well in a one-gap system. Right. And then suddenly they were bad when they couldn't coach the two-gap thing. And maybe there's probably stuff said behind the scenes of like, look, you're coaching this like absolute crap. We want a one gap again, and maybe relationships got fraught there, but it's kind of wild. Like you've pointed this out about like, Quinton Jefferson from like just a pressure percentage standpoint and the roles he can play. Like he can do some 3, he can do some 5, he can play on the edge even. Versus the big splash of Draymond Jones, who I think did really solid as a 5 tech defending the run. In the base stuff, I think he set real good edges. Don't think he was an issue really. But in terms of what you're paying him to do, he's probably been a slight disappointment on the year, right? Or maybe he's who we thought he was. But in terms of what money you're paying to get that, maybe been a disappointment.
Yeah, that was contract adjusted. It was definitely frustrating.
That's the term.
Yep.
Right. Well,
All right. So we just wait for tomorrow and see what happens.
we
The
wait for
Seahawks.
tomorrow.
When
So
what day of the week did they fire Ken Norton Jr.? Was it the Monday after?
well, Griff, I remember it like it was yesterday. Where were you when the Seahawks fired Ken Norton Jr.? The funniest thing, well, it's not funny, but the saddest, funniest, most amusing, I don't know. The thing about that is I was like preparing like a big article about Ken Norton Jr., how they fixed the defense, they found something, they've got stuff to build on, and we were like talking about, wow, that Cardinals game was cool. They got real foundations there, and yeah, nope,
Yeah.
yeah.
All
What?
right.
So yeah, okay. That's a fun top. What fire would you most expect, and what fire would most surprise you from the coaching staff?
Um, well, shoot. Part of me is wondering, does Pete actually fire Clint? Because in his mind, is he thinking, oh, it's only been 2 years. His mom died. There's too much going on. His mom passed away. I
And
should say.
he feels it's like a job, like not half, like not a
Like we
third
gotta
done,
finish
but
it.
like almost half done. Where like which is a young guy. We're trying to develop him. He's a good dude. He works hard. And
Right.
behind the scenes, he may know like, well, that coach isn't pulling
Yeah.
their weight, or the actual issue's this,
Right.
all that sort of stuff.
So like we can sit here and say, and I think everybody would agree with this, even people that want Waldron gone, everybody would agree that Waldron did a better job with the offense than Clint Hurtt did with the defense. I wouldn't be shocked if I don't expect this to happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if Pete kept Clint and then fired Waldron, just because Pete is weird about his OC hires, more weird than he is with his DC hiring and firing. But just what I think is likeliest, I think he probably fires Clint and then he keeps Waldron on for one more year. I do think that there will be offensive staff switch ups. I think that maybe a position coach or two gets fired or they bring in someone and give a specialized role, associate head coach of the offense or whatever, who just kind of helps with game planning, or it has a specific like red zone or third down or whatever the senior offensive analyst does.
Yeah, like a sneaky one with Pete Carroll's comments recently, and this is the time to really start paying attention to the subtleties of the press conferences, because it's where the truth really starts coming out, and the radio appearances. He
Thanks, Carl.
Yeah, which was a Tuesday. So basically, so Ken Norton Jr. filed Tuesday, January the 18th, is for the audio listeners, the comment Griff shared in 2022, of course. So that's like a week review, isn't it? And then probably hit up, well, because it's in-house, maybe that makes it happen quicker. Maybe Clint Hurt managed to politic his way up there in the review. We'll never know. But yeah, I guess it kind of takes a week for them to sort of think about things. But yeah, a sneaky thing, given Carroll's comments on the running back position, would be Chad Morton, who.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think the running backs. I mean, Walker's like a weird dude, right? But I don't think the running backs have been like, there hasn't been anything like coaching wise where I've other than Walker being a weird dude.
Yeah.
I thought that is fireable. Of course, he's been with the Seahawks since 2014, and is a former Trojan.
Yeah.
But
Shoddy was fired January 12th.
Oh, okay. But was that when it was only because the other factors to this is how many game seasons were they,
Oh, true.
So was that a 16-game season? When did it go? When did we go to this stupid 17-game seasons?
Well, it was 2021.
Right. So
Right.
10, but right. Okay. Yeah. So maybe that was 17 games then, wasn't it? So
Yeah.
So we'll probably find out next week about, and we might hear some leaks. So
there will be talk.
yeah, I need to get my fingers out,
Yeah,
get them in some pies. Do you have that expression?
I think I've heard it before.
You have? So defense coordinator, I don't know who. I think the obvious, just to finish on that, the obvious offensive staff guy is Sanjay Lal, isn't it? I mean, he's already been kind of let go on the slide once
Yeah,
by Pete.
and I you hate to just like you hate to point to a position group that has weird things go, like the position group didn't underperform, but like in the
In
aggregate,
the
but
like
like
raw production, right?
right, but like there were things like, well, the route details or route conversions weren't, and it's like, well, then okay, the natural thing is you look at the receiver coach, right? Because why wouldn't you? But I don't know if it's that simple. So I don't just want to like firing Sanjay Lal is like a
Yeah,
must, like
and yeah,
what,
we
what I
don't
want,
know.
yeah, right. There's no way to know. What I want is some staff change. That doesn't necessarily mean a fire, but some staff change that recognizes that needs to
Oh,
improve. That's
uh
all I
huh,
want.
uh
And I don't
huh.
care. I don't if it means Pete needs to move on from Law, okay, fine. If it means bringing in another guy, fine. But something like that needs to occur. So that said, I
So
do think now that said, in that area, I do think there was some mild improvement, right? Maybe more so the last 4 weeks in particular at that stuff. I stopped seeing, like two guys in the same place, running the wrong routes, not reading the coverage right, et cetera, right? Um,
right.
are you trying to go to me into saying it?
Well, Griff, have you ever thought about a cool idea?
But
So, chat, if you're tuning in for the first time, and you don't follow Griff on Twitter at @CMikeSpinMove, you will be unaware that Griff is suggesting that the Seahawks hire Frank Reich as their third down specialist slash senior offense dude to help out with the third down issue.
yeah, and or the
Griff,
red zone
why?
issue. So Frank Reich in particular, before the Panthers had good third downs everywhere he's been. San Diego, even though he wasn't calling plays, he was the third down when he was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles in 2016 and 17. Supposedly his role was he was the third down guy because Doug Peterson was calling the plays. He was effectively the real OC. Like the Seahawks, Waldron's the OC, but then Kerry Rhodes, the quarterback coach, his role in game planning and he's not just coaching the quarterbacks. His specific role is to do red zone, like Gino said that. I imagine Greg Olson is the third down guy. Maybe he isn't. Maybe that's all Waldron. I don't know. Shane Waldron mentioned when he was the pass game coordinator, he said, 1 year I did third downs, 1 year I did red zone. Like they say these things, right? So Frank Reich's job in 2017 Eagles with two different quarterbacks, he was the third down guy. They were the best third down offense, run, pass, success rate, EPA, all of it. And then he gets the head coaching job with the Colts. And through four different quarterbacks, the early down efficiency goes up and down. It's like really good with Luck, decent with Rivers, maybe just below average with Jacoby Brissett. I forget who the other quarterback was. Did he have Wentz that 1 year? Was
Yeah, I
also
think
right.
so.
And it was like bad with Wentz, but then their third downs were above average all 4 years. So clearly he game plans the shit out of third downs. Now he goes to Carolina and the entire offense is just inoperable. So yeah, you don't expect anything to happen there. That said, I should look at what it was with Andy Dalton on third downs because he could kind of run his more prototypical stuff with him. We know against the Seahawks they were bad on early downs, but good on third downs with Andy. So, maybe he just knows what he's doing. And he talked about maybe taking a year off. Maybe he wants to retire, but if he's looking for a squishy job, he can still stay in the minds of people that are looking to hire, like, low expenditure job where doesn't have the pressure of being the head coach or the play caller, but he can kind of help out with the offense and kind of give him a chance to step back. I mean, I'm not trying to play matchmaker here, but I feel like it makes sense for the Seahawks, and it makes sense for Frank Reich. But yeah, I don't know, something
Enough
like
of that. Enough of that. Like,
yeah,
enough of that. That's a great idea, Griff. I love it. Okay, they are, in soccer, right? In soccer, as soon as like a team loses 3-4 games in a row, which does happen a fair bit in soccer because seasons are quite long, like the 38 games in the league, right?
yeah.
Suddenly, like, it's all like, we need to fire our coach, like sack him, he's got to be sacked, he sucks, all that sort of stuff. But then the answer, the way of like refuting it and defending it is, well, that's a great idea, but who are you going to get in? And then it's like, well, this guy did really bad at that club, he's terrible, and all that stuff. So to that point, it's all well and good us saying Clinton Hurts probably got to go, but Pete Carroll has been through his entire tree, slashed, betrayed Chris Richard, did in Ken Norton Jr. Dan Quinn's very successful in Dallas and definitely isn't going to get fired. Pete Carroll's shown he's going to be open was open to with Sean Desai and Clint Hurt with the kind of Fangio elements. What they wanted to do, let them kind of take control. But who, Griff? Who's a good DC if not Clint Hurt?
So if assuming he hires from outside the building, so assuming it's not okay, I just looked it up. Andy Dalton's 22 third down plays would rank first in success rate this year. That's hilarious.
Well, that's because he played the Seahawks defense.
Yeah, but he also played another team.
Okay.
Anyway, it's just very funny how that rhythm. All right, this is what I would do. I'm sure there are other names that are realistic because we're not talking like no one's making a lateral move, right? No one's doing that. So a realistic name, I think this is what I would do. I would let me finish the whole sentence, chat, before you freak out.
Chat, don't freak out.
I would bring back Ken Norton Jr. as linebacker coach and associate head coach of the defense. I would double his UCLA paycheck.
Yeah, you'd need to probably quadruple it given how things ended there.
Yeah. You sign him to like $1 million a year, he's coming back. And then I would hire Brandon Staley to be the defensive coordinator. To have him call the plays, and I would keep Carl Scott coaching DBs. I think that's what I would do. I feel like that kind of would maintain what works a little bit, and then he would apply the scheme and game plan things better. And I think Ken Norton Jr. would be a great voice to help with making sure the front structure is always sound, and then Staley can work with that. That was something Staley also had problems with on defense in LA. But he took a average or so defense. Wade Phillips, 2019 Rams defense, obviously pretty much the same players, best defense in the league in 2020. The Chargers did not have the players his first year. His second year, he takes over game planning. He takes over play calling as a DC. He goes all in on the defense. He also shows adaptations. He's not just copy pasting what he did with the Rams. He's living in other areas of his playbook. And over the second half of that season last year, just like the Ravens, he's top 5 over that period just by switching some things up. So if he goes sicko mode, he goes beast mode, and only focuses on the defense, you give him talents like Devin Witherspoon, a really good post safety in Quandre Diggs, who doesn't give up deep completions, Tariq Woolen, and a pass rush that has that, you get a full year of Leonard Williams and everyone, in spite of his receding hairline.
No, Griff, you misunderstand.
He can do something with this, man. He's also never had a middle linebacker that can cover.
You misunderstand, Griff. As you've done excellent analysis there, brilliant stuff. I can see the vision, but as the advanced analytics show, Pete Carroll only hires bald defense coordinators. And is this bald enough for Pete? Obviously, this is taken a year ago. We'll try and find some up-to-date metrics on Brandon Staley's hair. I'm a bit concerned from Brandon's daily perspective. This is concerning. This looks like it may be coming back, but that was 2 years ago. You know, my interest was peaked with this. This is receding here, and this was a while ago. So we'll have to see. Maybe he could shave for the interview.
Yeah.
Get a buzz cut. But no, Griff, I like the vision. I like the vision.
There are other
I think
names
that would mean more odd fronts returning, and then it's like how do they you know, come up with like, you know, are we going to play four eyes? All that minutia.
But I think Pete and Ken will be like in lockstep. They're like Staley, when you want to live in odd space and when you want to do that, let me institute the details, but it can be your structure, but let me institute the micro within your macro.
Do the players like him? Is he likable?
I feel like, I don't know, man. I feel like the Seahawks locker room would kind of vibe with him. And like with the older guys, if the results are there, they don't care.
Yeah.
And they're like, results now. That's what I want, results. And would it matter if Ken's in the building? Because they all love Ken. That's a little they're all obsessed.
The problem with the Ken thing, along with, you know, that's gonna be difficult to repatch. But also, how do you justify that? How do you justify that to ownership? Because Griff, you're saying things are bad. How we fix them is remember that guy we fired to modernize our defense.
Yeah,
we're gonna bring that dude back. And
yeah, no, you're right.
Don't worry though, he's not the DC.
No, you're right.
We're just gonna pay him like a DC to coach linebackers in the front.
No, you're right.
It's a nice idea.
It's a little fan fiction, isn't it? All right, so Matty, what would you do? What are some other names out there? I want to hear some other names.
The problem
is that we prepared for this.
Yeah, maybe this is a different topic. Maybe we kind of do research.
It should, yeah, we should.
Jim Leonard, he's like a trendy name
from college.
Odd front, coached at Illinois when they were running some odd front stuff, bare front. That could be cool. Obviously, multiple stops in the league, like, and you'd get maybe, I know he does like some Rex Ryan kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not opposed. I like that. So next episode,
that would be exciting. Like when they did this Clint Hurt thing with Decide, we were like, wow, this is going to be cool. It's an ambitious hybrid. How is that going to shake out? Not well, actually, but who knows? It could work this time. Yeah. Chat, what names do you have? Yeah, Misfit. Mike McDonald is a lovely idea, but why would he take a lateral move when he's in a place where he's really succeeding and is probably going to get head coaching interviews this season?
I wouldn't be opposed to hiring him if they fired Pete Carroll. Like, you know, we're talking about a head coach.
Okay, yeah. So Griff, let's end on that.
Yeah,
we've talked about Pete Carroll, and we've said how we probably wouldn't fire him. Do you think he gets fired? And Chris, thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that.
I don't always agree with you all. You don't. Absolutely fine, but I appreciate the analysis. Thank you very much. If Pete Carroll retires, who's your choice for head coach? It does feel unlikely that they'd fire him, Griff. But we've talked about it, haven't we?
Yeah.
I'm going around in circles. But yeah, who would you like as a head coach if, you know, Pete Carroll's no longer in Seattle?
I think you have to do your due diligence. Look at Brian Flores, Mike McDonald. You know, I'd
hate Flores.
I would not like his defense.
That would be such a culture shock.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he's like proper strict with it, you know.
Yeah.
He's like a Belichick kind of disciple thing.
True.
Like banning music and stuff.
Yeah. Ben Johnson, I don't think if people didn't like Staley, I don't think for personality reasons, I don't think they like Ben Johnson. You know what would be? No, it won't happen. I was gonna say Sark, and Sark and Gino would be fun as hell. Lane Kiffin and Gino would be.
That's the way to do it. That is perfect. Pete Carroll gets his start under Monte Kiffin.
Yeah,
he brings up Monte Kiffin's son. He coaches him up as his offensive mind at USC. Lane Kiffin goes out into the wild. He experiences college football, and then
Fanon, I agree, 100%. They're soft. It's not real. It's not real football.
Yeah, absolutely right. Griff, we've had a very generous donation.
Yes, my goodness gracious.
Carl, thank you so much. That's very kind of you. If you got a question, Carl, please do ask it, but appreciate that. Thank you.
Carl, really appreciate that, man. That's very kind and generous of you. Thank you, man. Lou Anarumu, but he's on the older side, right?
This reminds
thing is, if we want to hire from the Shanahan McVay tree, that tree is really drained right now. I mean, if that tree is dispersed so much. Like Slowick is interesting, but like it's 1 year, it's not enough. You just hire the current OC of the 49ers again. I mean, eventually the luck's going to run out in one of these hires. Like McDaniel is a great coach because he's a great coach. You know, so I don't know.
I quite like that idea of like a dude who, you know, he's been in multiple stops. He doesn't really necessarily come from a tree. Like Anarumo.
Yeah.
I don't have a. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about him though. Like,
I don't think
is he a head coach?
The hire that Vulcan would make. I think Vulcan would want like a big fish, you know.
Well, that would be probably Ben Johnson then.
He's not a big fish though. They want a guy they can run a guy who's like runs a program, you know. Honestly, the Michigan DC, I don't know if he'd I don't think he's ready yet for that.
Or just the Michigan head coach.
No, please God. If people didn't like actually, I mean, he probably run a good offense, but he's a run first coach. People want to he'd even be run first at Gino. Do people want that? I thought you guys hated that stuff.
All of you guys.
Yeah.
Every single one of you.
Yeah.
Not Eric Bieniemy.
Kafka?
I'm not watching an offense which does that. It's disgusting.
I don't like his offense. What about Kafka? Mike Kafka?
And Gino? That's hype beast enough for Vulcan.
Maybe. He's supposedly the brains behind the operation.
He is. I know. Yeah. I don't know if you could like sell that. And like that brings us nicely to
the next read. He's supposed to be Andy's guy.
Right. But that brings us, Griff, nicely to the kind of added dimension of this, which is supposedly they're not going to sell the team for a bit. I may have like 2025 seems to be a thing. Is there something to do with tax or something?
Yeah.
I don't know.
There was a report like Jody can hang on for a lot longer than people think she can.
Yeah, I think there's something to do with like if they sell the team at a certain point, they won't have to pay as much. You know, they'll make more money basically. Yeah. But what Pete Carroll always brings with John Schneider, as with just evidence, like while everyone's moaning and not everyone, but a lot of people are upset and moaning, and I get it. You missed the playoffs, I get it. It feels like going backwards or just being stagnant or being in purgatory, whatever. There's a baseline, like functioning. There's no scandals. There's no like disaster. They don't have like 0 people in the stands. They sell most of their tickets. There's still a season ticket wait list. There's stability there that makes your value of the franchise not just plummet. They're running a football operation there, and so that's why it would be especially surprising, I think, if Pete's moved on by Jody.
Right.
And I think, if a new owner was announced, you don't know what on earth would and that may be a few years down the line, but you don't know what on earth is going to play out. They might want their own guy. You might get Tepper. You might get someone like that. But yeah, it's something to monitor. Griff, Dan Quinn is an obvious name given links to Pete Carroll. I think.
Yeah, that wouldn't.
I don't know the way his.
Sorry, what? I think there was a lag there.
No, there isn't. Just go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think he's a good program head coach, like quote unquote program head coach. He runs the show type of thing. I don't think he'd be calling plays on defense. And I think that's really his primary value. I like what he's doing as a DC because it's such an efficient wielding of his players. He's just like, guys, go, 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 go all the time because he has the players to do that. I mean, the roster has to be there. I also like, and this is obvious, anyone would point out with him, he probably knows how important the offensive coordinator hire is. He knows that's what will sink him. He knows what happened when Kyle Shanahan left, and he is on the Cowboys, and he looks across the way and sees Dak Prescott throwing it all over the place. He absolutely knows that that's the quarterback and the offense, and the OC is vastly important. So, if they do fire Pete this year and you give him Geno, like you have a pass game right in front of you, right there, right now, he'll probably go and, leverage all of the goodwill and pull he has in the industry to get the best name to come call plays for Geno, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, and go head-to-head, toe-to-toe with the 49ers and the Rams, or at least try to, or die trying.
Do you think you see Quinn and Chotty?
That would be maybe.
I don't know how well they get along working in Dallas together.
I'm sure probably well, right?
Yeah.
I would love that. But I don't know. He would probably, I mean, Ken Dorsey's a name floating around, right? If they fire Waldron, he would be one of the top names I would think of too.
As head coach or OC?
No, OC. God.
Oh, right. Okay.
We're not there yet with him. We're taking it slow.
Well, Pete Carroll does like him some pass first offenses, huh, Griff?
Yep. That is his whole deal.
Okay. Novosos, thank you so much for the donation.
Thank you, Novosos.
Very kind. Multiple times. This is what we're talking about. Not only has Novosos donated, but they're watching multiple times and on the podcast app as well.
That is a real overloader. Thank you, Novosos.
Yep, true overloader. That's that's something we could look into. Be an overloader. Because it's channel memberships. Anyway, very appreciate the donation. Right. Griff, closing thoughts. Go on. Give us a closing thought. You're very you're smart.
Is this something non-football? Are we trying to
No, not non-football. Like, I don't know.
Off-ramp?
It could be abstract.
Abstract. Cascade effect. Go watch that YouTube video about the cascade effect about the wolves in Yellowstone, and then relate it to the wolves being reintroduced to Yellowstone, and then relate it to the Seahawks in general, defense and offense and stuff.
Huh.
Do it.
How different is a cascade effect to a butterfly effect?
I think a butterfly effect is something more like serendipitous and random. A butterfly effect can lead to a cascade effect. Like I think butterfly effect could be the umbrella term, but like the cascade effect when they reintroduced wolves, that was a deliberate choice by like scientists and stuff when
Right.
wildlife, because after they hunted them to extinction in the area.
Yeah. So like a cascade effect, once you've kind of enacted it, it's like it's gonna happen. Whereas a butterfly effect like is kind of circumstantial and a small thing which can then have a
Yeah,
it may or may not have like it could have been a potential one, but it might not. It's not inevitable.
Yeah. The cascade effect at in this case was deliberate. Like Roquan Smith definitely yielded a cascade effect. Is he the difference between
What?
22
Why?
slots?
What is Ryan? What do I want to call him here? I want to call him Ryan Pace, but it's Ryan Poles, isn't it?
Ryan Poles?
What's he doing in Chicago?
I don't know.
What's really going on there?
I don't know.
Why couldn't they beat this Green Bay Packers? Because they
Well,
traded Roquan Smith. That doesn't bloody help.
anyway,
Okay. Yeah.
I think Huskies win.
Yeah,
I think they block
Henry.
Michigan.
I don't know if it's mean, but I kind of don't want to see happy people tomorrow. I think it's a state of mourning. So is that bad?
No, I don't know. Probably let people enjoy their sports. I mean, I'm a Husky fan, so go Huskies. I think the Washington O line can block the Michigan front, and I think Penix and the receivers are too much.
I might drink
Maybe
like
I'll
a
be wrong.
purplish color whiskey in solidarity with the Huskies.
There you go.
Who's wearing their home color? Because I really don't like purple
Purple's great.
with gold. I don't think so. Right.
Yeah. All right.
Someone asked, I can't find it, but someone asked about off-season plans. Well, Griff and I will get together on a schedule that Griff can make work, but I'm going to try and keep it as regular as I have been. We might run out of topics, but we'll have all this news about who gets fired, who gets hired, etc., etc. We'll have a schematic review of the defense, schematic review of the offense. We can have a data review of either side of the football as well. Senior Bowl will happen. I'll be able to get Senior Bowl film, I hope. We'll have college all 22. Don't tell them because they're quite aggressive with how they attack. But we'll look at like major needs of the team, look at free agency. Honestly, the off season I think is there's endless content, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Lots to discuss. I mean, honestly, we could do like a podcast or a prospect live watch once a week until the draft.
So just to prove that we're never wrong, Griff. Last year, the guys we liked were Keon White, Jaden Reed, and all the other good players, right?
Yeah, we liked all the good players, and then all the bad players we knew wouldn't be good.
That's right.
Yeah.
And a cool off-season topic I think will be, which I want to explore with you, is why CJ Stroud. There's similarities with Geno Smith that we talked about last draft cycle. Why is CJ Stroud playing so well in Houston? Is there anything we can learn about that? That's a subject for another day, Griff. I know you're really excited to answer that now. We can just wait. Monjombo, that's your first time watching the Overload? That's funny. That was an all-time classic moment.
I was upset when that happened.
Yeah. I mean, what has he what's he done this year?
Not a whole lot. In fact, they even moved him to Will off ball.
Oh,
Howie, I
that's tough.
thought you would never draft a non-pass rushing Sam linebacker in the first round. What's going on, Howie?
Right. Well, thank you so much, chat. Amazing that you all wanted to hang out tonight after, well, it was a win technically, but a disappointing day overall for Seattle. They will be back in 2024 playing football, and we'll be there covering it. But we've also got a massive offseason to look ahead to where they have similar issues as we've talked about, and issues that need fixing quick, or there's going to be some even more serious ramifications. But we're going to keep continuing with Overload. Thank you, everyone, for your support. Thanks so much for the kind donations tonight. Really appreciate that. David, Jen, Chris, Carl, Novosos, and also Henry via Stripe. Please do like the channel. Like the video on the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Comment down below. 5-star review on your podcast app. Share it with a friend. Word of mouth. It does work. Just say, the weird, nerdy British guy and the very handsome, intelligent Washingtonian. Are you a Washingtonian, Griff?
Yeah.
You can follow that guy at See Mike Spin Move. Follow me at Matty F. Brown. Follow the pod at Seattle Overload. We'll be back. Well, we'll be back tape review. We've still got tape review. Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe. We'll work it out. Right.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone. See.